Now, anyone who has been following this lecture series knows that I have chosen the image of a watermelon filled with seeds as being the perfect simplistic metaphor for visualizing us and the universe. Because once you are able to view our relationship to God in the granted, strange, yet completely natural context of our minds being the encapsulated potential of becoming like the fully fruitioned reality of God's mind, which momentarily contains us now like seeds in a melon, then everything will begin to make sense. And I do mean everything, from astrophysics to quantum physics, to the concepts in the world's religions, to our very own instinctive feeling that somehow God is present throughout the entire universe. That in some strange way, God is everything, and everything is God, including the suns and the planets and the very bodies we inhabit. Yet how can that be, when all of our conceptualizations of God always seem to picture him as looking like one of us, confined and limited? Well, that's because all of our images and models of God are the result of a seed's perspective from within the big melon himself. With nothing else to go by, we seeds imagine our progenitor as looking like one of us, because as a seed, we are completely oblivious to the fact that the very pulp in which we are suspended, which includes these seed pods, is all literally a part of the living essence of the ultimate life form we are each destined to become like. And to understand why we cannot seem to recognize what's going on here, realize that we are operating at a similar level of unconsciousness relative to our present prenatal situation, enveloped in God's living essence, as we once were as fetuses enveloped in our mother's living essence. Just as it was when we existed in her womb, we are totally unaware of the higher level of consciousness and the higher dimensional reality of the outer circumstances of the being that contains us. As we stare out into the universe, we are not privy to the outer and overview of our ultimate parent. We cannot peer beyond that metaphorical rind wall of God's all-encompassing being to see what he really looks like on the other side of the wall, looking back at him in the light of the garden. All we can see right now is other seed pods and pulp. Obviously, analogies founded in nature seem to abound in this concept, which in itself should tell us something. However, before we venture too far into the land of metaphor, let's review some illustrations from the previous episodes that should help us to understand exactly how we are like God. Now, most humans who even attempt to envision the universe are generally overwhelmed by its size, which makes it extremely difficult for them to entertain the thought of a living being possessing dominion over it. However, and whatever consolation this may be, the universe and its contents are not infinite. Again, there is a boundary or a closure to it all. A closure that parallels the closure of a human mind. Now, from the material perspective, it is fairly easy to mentally infer the outer boundary of the universe. Because according to astrophysicists, approximately 20 billion years ago, everything we understand the universe to be was once contained in an area smaller than a human egg or zygote. Now, obviously, the universe cannot get much more bounded than what that concept implies. And my comparing it to a human zygote is no small analogy either. So just keep that in mind. However, at some point, it began to expand forth into the void, like an expanding bubble of reality, whose outer film is a spherical wall of light that is preceding its denser contents. And during the estimated 20 billion year lifespan of the universe, where the light has not yet reached into the void, should be perceived as the cutoff point of the closed dimension of the universe itself. So at least in a purely materialistic vision, everything that we understand reality to be, including ourselves, is contained within this bubble. And this outer boundary that delineates the unity of the bubble itself is a light barrier. And everything beyond the light barrier should be thought of as being infinite nothingness or void. Now, on the other hand, what I am saying in the ultimate seed concept is that this expanding bubble of reality that I just described is actually the living mind of God, founded upon His existence and infused throughout with His life essence. That's why we can sense God's presence in everything we see. The universe is the closed and sovereign dimension of God's personal consciousness. So instead of thinking of the outer boundary of the universe as being some kind of fixed materialistic light barrier, to understand what it really is, all you have to do is once again close your eyes. And as you peer into the inner spatial dimension of your own personal consciousness, try to perceive its outer boundary. Now, of course, you won't see anything. However, in attempting to envision the outer boundary of your own mind, you will, by analogy, infer the truth of the boundary of the universe. Even though it appears to be open and endless, it is not. It is the closed mental system of God's personal consciousness that is bounded in the same way that our own minds are bounded. By reason of the limited field of the life energy that makes up the sum total of each individual mind itself. I am a separate mind, you are a separate mind, and God is a separate mind. And in all cases, these invisible mental boundaries, or rind walls that I have been referring to, should be perceived as the dividing lines between separate minds, or the point where one individual consciousness ends and another one begins. You and I, or our minds, just happen to be held within God's mind at this moment. Remember, we are the ultimate embryos in the cosmic womb of the ultimate life form.